So if you've got multiple projects going on at the same time, it's tracking the projects, so either through things like tracking categories or, just to make sure that you understand the profitability of that project. Every contract has had good projects and bad projects where they've even lost money, but it's trying to understand why, rather in project, while it's going on, rather than 9 months after the year end. Oh, I thought I'd made some money, or that's a bit more tax than I was expecting. It's kind of, where you are during the year, and you understand where the project is really. Is your billing up to date in terms of what's being agreed with the project lines and what you've delivered? Because sometimes cash flow comes in because you've paid for all the costs, but you haven't actually billed for the work. For most people, us included, unless you get an invoice, you're not really obliged to pay it. So sometimes
Absolutely.
we're our own worst enemy.
No, absolutely. You're spot on. And I think it definitely, without even knowing it, you're plugging Assemble Pro there. Like, that is definitely something I've seen on a lot of contractors that I've worked with over the years, is if you can identify quickly. I've actually spent way more money than I anticipated on the excavation. There was a tree there, we didn't know, we had to dig up roots, or there was something to do with the civil engineering that just wasn't in the initial plans. We've spent a lot more on the excavation, for example. If you can identify that early doors and then start to course correct elsewhere, or else know, exactly like you're talking about, I know I'm going to take a hit on this project. I need to be careful on my next project, or I need to be, making sure that I'm making up for that somewhere else. Exactly like you said, if in 9 months' time you're kind of reviewing the books and you think, Jesus, I actually thought I made a nice profit on that, but it turns out, God, yeah, do you remember that tree that we had to pull up in the middle of the site that cracked a gas pipe or something like that, So just tracking, I think, is definitely a very good recommendation for every business, not just construction businesses.
Yeah, and if Assemble Pro helps with that, that's great, because obviously I think once you get into the on-site boots on the ground, you kind of forget how you quoted. So if something like a tree comes along that wasn't expected there, or the client conveniently forgot to tell you about, then you can go back and have a conversation. You assured us this quote was based on the assumption of X, Y, and Z, which you said, which we discussed, or it's a learning point for next time in terms of how to better quote for things, and build in your assumption, or stipulate caveats, or if we dig it up and we find a Roman site or something like that, these are going to be the additional costs, because of we're going to put people on pause, or whatever it is, or whatever needs to happen. So again, it gives you the tool to fix and course correct your profitability and cash flow as the project's happening, rather than review it months afterwards and go, oh, great.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, I think a paper trail, so as that you can go back and say, this is what we estimated, here is our bid, here's the changes that you're implementing now after the fact, and then have a conversation with them and make sure that, the project cash flow is working for both parties. Obviously, you want to assume that most people didn't maliciously do it, but just if there is a paper trail and you can point to it, well, then there's a good, clear communication and dialogue that can kind of take you going forward.
100%. I think that leads you on to the next point, and at the start, when you are trying to bid for it, you bid for profit rather than bid to just win the work. So there is enough margin in there for, the odd small variables that are undoubtedly going to happen, that we live in the real world. But at the same time, you're not working on such razor thin margins that, like one day's rain or something like that would just absolutely blow the project to hell. So, you've got to be, and again, after the project's done, review, are those margins correct, and will they be able to fund the business profitably for, and it comes back to, why did you set up the business, and is it achieving the goals that you wanted it to?
Yeah,